My name is Tacha Iswaran. I'm the Communications Officer at the Royal College of Pathologists. And today I'm joined by Penny Fletcher, who is the Public Engagement Manager. Penny and I will be working behind the scenes today. So if you have any questions at all for any of us about any of the activities, or indeed about viruses, vaccines, immunity, or perhaps even about COVID-19, please do let us know by using the chat function, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. We're really looking forward to seeing all your lovely creations. So please do share your photos of the drawings and origami creations with us on our social media channels. You can use the hashtag viruses and vaccines, and we're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. As mentioned, Penny and I both work at the Royal College of Pathologists. You may be wondering what pathology is or what pathologists do. So to help answer that, we've got a very short video, which we're going to play now.
Pathologists are experts in disease. Their job is to work out what is making someone unwell, advise on their treatment, and stop other people getting ill the same way. Pathologists work in laboratories, in clinics, and on hospital wards. Every blood test, allergy diagnosis, or search for infection will involve a pathology team. People who work in pathology services specialise in particular areas. For example, if you're anemic, a haematologist will find out why. When you find a lump, a histopathologist will work out if you have cancer or not. If you have diabetes, a chemical pathologist will plan your treatment. And when you've got an infection, a microbiologist will advise whether or not you need antibiotics, and if so, which one. Bridging science and medicine, pathologists underpin every aspect of patient care, diagnosing, treating, and preventing disease. They are a key part of the healthcare team.
So hopefully you could all see and hear that. If you would like to find out a bit more about what it's like to work in pathology, we've got a lot of information on our website. So that's on www.rcpath.org, and if you go to /careers or follow us on social media, you can find out more. We'll be sharing some relevant links after this event. So without further ado, I'm really delighted to introduce Dr. Lizzie Burns. We're really excited to be working with her for this event, but also for our brand new viruses and vaccines resource pack. Lizzie is a science-based artist whose beautiful illustrations and origami are featured in the new resource pack. You will have received an email with a link to the resources prior to this event, but you can access them at rcpath.org/viruses and vaccines. So today we'll be exploring some of the art science activities from the pack, which you can follow along with at home. And today Lizzie, while she's demonstrating the activities, we'll be chatting with Infectious Diseases specialty Dr. Francesca Knapper, as well as a consultant in Infectious Diseases, Dr. Antonia Ho. And we're finding out a bit more about their work and how they're helping in the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll now hand over to Dr. Lizzie Burns, who will take you through the activities. Thanks very much and enjoy.
Many thanks. Welcome everybody. Really looking forward to this session. I've been working on artwork and origami designs to hopefully inspire you about the virus that's caused us all havoc and how science pathology is helping. So this is very much celebrating how science is helping us all. So it's going to be most of all a chance for you to get creative, which is good for your well-being. And there's a whole pack of resources which hopefully you'll get on and use, and there's more films. But I want us to we're going to have almost two halves to this session. The first half will be around more viruses. So if you've been able to print out a couple of sheets, that's great. If you haven't, it doesn't matter. But there's one which will be a virus collection. The second one will be a virus inside and out, and I began colouring these in. if you haven't got a printer, that's absolutely fine. I will briefly show you some images, and I suggest then you grab some paper and pencils, and we'll just get doodling and colouring. So either way, you'll be able to get creative. That will be the first half, and we'll be asking more questions about viruses. The second half, we'll think more about vaccines and how they work. Before we get going, we wanted to pose a bit of a poll for you so you can vote. There are 4 different pieces of origami that we could show. So I'm going to show you the options. So one option is to fold something that looks like DNA. Hopefully you can see that. Another option is to fold an antibody, and you can put your own little bit of a vaccine in there. Another option is to fold your own syringe and heart. That's what it's all about, care. And the other option is to fold your own virus. What do you fancy? So what we'll do is we'll definitely do the top fold, and this will be in the second half. This is very interesting, and then depending on which it is, we'll see whether we have time to do another. But you'll find there's videos all on that page, so you will be able to do everything anyway, but it's what we do together. Oh, this is very interesting. So far it's looking like the virus is the is winning so far. That's interesting. We've done just one session with secondary school students, and that was what they were really interested in. So I reckon this looks like probably that. I think Penny will keep an eye. Will you keep an eye on the polls there? So are we keeping that up for now?
Yeah, I was going to leave it till everyone's voted.
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll see what we end up doing. So if you grab yourself your virus collection. Now, if you haven't managed to get a printer, I'm just going to really briefly show you a page of images which I hope will inspire you. So these are images from science, and they look very colourful and rather beautiful. You wouldn't think that viruses would be beautiful. You can't really see viruses with a normal microscope. They are so tiny. So you use something called an electron microscope. There's no actual interesting folder virus became the most popular there. I think that will keep us busy enough, actually. How funny. This is what we found before. You're all fascinated by the virus as well. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for the votes. So here, all sorts of pictures. I wonder actually, so look at these pictures, get inspired by these beautiful patterns. Viruses have kind of spikes often on the outside and then some information on the inside. Have a look at those, maybe get inspired. I'm going to stop the share, but instead, maybe we'll get going on a bit of colouring. Maybe you can invent your own viruses there. So Tony, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about viruses. Maybe actually I could start with a question, because we've been sent, Miss Mitchell, thank you very much for your questions. We've been sent all sorts of really good questions from a year 5 group. What shall I ask? What do you think started COVID? This is a good question. I'm going to get colouring.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So coronaviruses have been around for a really long time. And they're called coronaviruses because under the electron microscope that Lizzie told you about, it looks like a crown because it's circular and they have all these projections coming out that are actually called spike protein. And under the microscope, it looks like a crown. So that's why they're called coronaviruses. And there are a number of coronaviruses that affect people. So most of them tend to cause the common cold, but we also have SARS, which came out in 2002, 2003, and more recently MERS, the Middle Eastern coronavirus. The COVID-19 was discovered at the end of 2019. We think most likely that it came from bats. So there are lots of bat coronaviruses that are very similar in their genetic material to COVID-19. And we think it might have gone into another host, another animal. And then because viruses are really good at evolving, mutating, and somehow it jumped from the bat through this animal into humans. So this is how the coronavirus came about.
Wow, thank you for that. I guess actually we're going to come on a little bit more to the virus it's not a very catchy name, is it? SARS-CoV-2. Yeah. I finally learned that, but we're all thinking of it as the coronavirus, which is easier to remember. But I've actually drawn all sorts of viruses here, and I thought it was kind of interesting because we've heard maybe of some of them. Ebola, which looks huge compared to the others. Smallpox. Smallpox is something that's worth mentioning. Can you tell us more, Tony, about smallpox?
Yeah, I mean, smallpox is something that used to affect lots of people a long, long time ago, but we haven't had a case for many, many years because of vaccines. Do I have smallpox on my t-shirt? I just want to show you my t-shirt that has lots of viruses. And it's probably one of the human viruses that we've managed to eradicate because vaccines have been so effective that we haven't seen them. But there is a cousin of smallpox called monkeypox, which is still around in Africa in particular. And because we haven't seen smallpox for such a long time, we've actually seen some cases of monkeypox in the last few years.
Oh, wow. So in a way, this is a really nice example that it is possible to get rid of a virus. So some of the questions came from year 5 about, will we ever get rid of it? Actually, will we get back to normal life again? But
I hope so. I think the vaccine obviously seems to be working well. In the UK, we've vaccinated, I think, nearly 40% of people, which is amazing considering that, we only started vaccinating people in December. And Francesca will probably agree with me that, in a year, we've managed to find multiple effective vaccines is really a miracle. So, we are, I don't see it going away altogether. I think it will become like other coronaviruses. We call it endemic, which means humans just get used to them. So the reason it causes such severe disease is because it's a completely new virus that we've never encountered before. So that's why, most of us have never had exposure and therefore don't have any antibodies to fight that infection. But I think over time with vaccines and increasing number of people, it will just become one of the kind of common viruses, maybe like flu, that we might see every winter. So I don't think it will ever go away, but I think it will become something that we live with. And hopefully over time, we can go back to more normal life and being able to, see our friends and family indoors and hug people and go to restaurants and go to concerts, which I think we all miss loads.
We're going to appreciate that so much, aren't we? So the other sort of colouring in and drawing bit is you can have a go at drawing the sort of outside. This is the coronavirus, and there's an inside. And so if you colour them, you should be able to stick them back to back, and then you'll be able to look on the kind of inside and outside of a virus. I've also got something which I thought you might find quite interesting. It's like it's actually a little key ring. It's by an amazing sculptor who makes little tiny sculptures of viruses. Can you see? So the spikes on the outside, and then inside they have stuff like sort of DNA, in this case RNA, but it's pretty similar. And it has a really nice little shape on it. They're really lovely. This is actually a different virus, but it's quite similar. And not all viruses have this, but it also has an extra shell on the outside of those spikes, which is called an envelope. So that's the outside of it. So they vary a bit. Can you tell us more about the outside?
Yeah, I mean, viruses are really basic structures, actually. Most of them, and I love that keyring, by the way. I quite like that myself. Most of it is really consisting of kind of 3 parts. The genetic material, in the inside, either DNA or RNA, and that kind of provides instructions, kind of like an instruction manual, because when it attaches to human cells or host cell, it doesn't have to be human, it could be an animal. It basically kind of hijacks human cells or animal cells, and then it provides the genetic instructions on how it can multiply in itself, and then releases kind of thousands of copies. So you have the kind of genetic material, it's often coated by an outer coating called a capsid. And some viruses have, as you say, an outer envelope layer that is made of lipids or fats. And then it has the kind of projections, which is the spikes that allows the virus to attach to human cells. So it's kind of like a launch pad type thing that allows it to kind of attach to human cells. And that's how it works. And because coronavirus in particular has this fatty layer, that's why soap and water works so well, because it works to kind of dissolve the fat layer. And, you know, that's why soap and water is so effective. And that's
it's
why
lovely that something so every day could kill a virus. Obviously,
I just saw some great colouring and some great
we're also getting some good questions. Yeah, we'll definitely have to see what you're doing. Some more questions actually from the audience. What if viruses don't have the spikes?
That's a good question. Well, there are different outer coatings. Some people have spikes. There are different viruses that have different outer coatings that are called nuclear protein. They're just different coatings that allow people to attach. So yeah, you're quite right. Some of them don't have the spike.
But I guess if a virus mutated so it didn't have a spike and couldn't attach,
yeah,
that's great for us, but the virus wouldn't pass on. So that probably wouldn't be a virus that would continue very well.
Yeah, and they are made of proteins, and you know, basically viruses can't exist by themselves. You know, there are lots of arguments about whether viruses are alive or not, are living organisms, because they can't really exist by themselves. They are often called a parasite because they do need to hijack other living organisms, be it an animal or human, in order to multiply themselves. So, you know, there are lots of virology experts who argue whether viruses are alive or not, but they do depend on other living organisms in order to multiply themselves.
Oh, we're getting loads of questions. I wonder as well, we should introduce Francesca as well, who has been working with people who've been affected by COVID. So as a doctor working on COVID wards, so we're very lucky to have her as well. I wonder, actually, Francesca, could I start asking some questions from year 5? We've also got loads more questions from the audience, but have you had a vaccine yet? And what's your favourite thing about your job? This is from a year 5. Kyle.
Nice, easy question. So hi everyone. Yeah, my name's Francesca. I'm a registrar. So I've been a doctor for quite a few years now, but I'm not quite a consultant yet. So I'm training to be a consultant in microbiology and also infectious diseases. So my job's quite varied, actually. So the two specialties, so microbiology is predominantly in the laboratory, and we act as the go-between really between the lab and patients. So the lab processes samples, and then we speak to other clinicians and go and see patients on the wards. Whereas infectious diseases is more patient facing. So we have patients in the hospital and our ward, and then we also have outpatient clinics. So quite varied. I guess my favourite bits about my job, I really enjoy seeing patients, and particularly when we see patients, we have quite a good continuity. So when you see patients in the hospital and then when you follow them up in clinics, I mean, there's patients that I've looked after for several years, and I think that's probably one of the most enjoyable bits of my job, when we see patients who, you know, potentially are really unwell, and then you follow them up for some years, you know, patients with TB and HIV, and see how they improve. Because I think on the whole, patients with infections tend to get better, and I guess that, you know, it's a feel-good job in that sense. But yeah, I mean, the last year has been, you know, both fascinating and terrifying at the same time. But yeah, it's been incredibly interesting.
And Francesca, you were saying that you were helping with the Oxford trial, the vaccine here. I guess we haven't yet quite fully explained how vaccines work. I wonder, actually, Francesca, would you be willing to explain how a vaccine works?
Yeah, of course. Yes, I was fortunate to help consent people for the trial before the vaccine was licensed. So we've had vaccines for a long time now, and we're very fortunate to have vaccines against a lot of different infections. So when we are infected with a pathogen, so a virus or bacteria, for example, we end up with our immune system is what fights off that infection. And it takes a while for our immune system to kind of get going. And initially you have an innate immune system that provides sort of an initial response, and it's kind of sort of generic. And then once your body's had time, it makes antibodies against that specific pathogen. And what vaccines can do is they can give your body a kind of head start, really, by providing your body an opportunity to make antibodies without actually having the infection. So often they'll use a part of the virus or the coating of a bacteria to enable us to make antibodies. And these antibodies mean that if you encounter the actual pathogen, your body has a head start and you're able to kind of fight it off, often before you even become unwell. So our most effective vaccines prevent patients from even becoming symptomatic with the infection. And in terms of COVID, we use a spike protein to generate an antibody against that, which stops you from getting the infection.
Brilliant. So actually, I wonder if I can really quickly demonstrate later on, sort of after this event. Check out the resources. There's a page there where you can fold your own antibody. So they're little proteins. It's again tiny things in your body, and they've got like 2 arms, and the arms can recognize a spike, like your spike of the virus, which will make, I saw some. When are we going to get started in the origami? We'll get started on the origami next. I wonder as well, when we get going, it's quite a good one for you to do, actually, this one, because you'll soon get into the pace as to how to make these little spikes. So the antibody would recognize the spike like that and sort of stop the virus then from working so much, and just flag up to your body that you need to get rid of these things. So a vaccine works by just making a tiny bit of the spike. So it's safe, it's not the whole virus. And that means then once that sticks onto the antibody, you get loads more antibodies made, and that will then keep you protected. So actually, we'll get going on the origami. I wonder as well, there are so many good questions. I wonder if we can almost do like little tiny quick answers to these, because if we give a really full answer, we'll never get through them. Shall we just give 2 minutes of quick answers to things, and then we'll get going on the origami? Does that sound a plan? Can astronauts get a virus in space? Quick answer.
Absolutely. I think so. I mean, I think as long as there are humans in space, then viruses can exist in humans in space, I think. I don't know how many people. I'm not familiar with any studies of viral infections, but given that astronauts are people and virus can inhabit humans, so I think absolutely it can.
Never know. Are there any viruses that are beneficial to humans?
Yeah, I think basically there are millions of viruses, and actually at any one time we're all, we all have lots of viruses inhabiting us, and it's almost like an ecosystem of viruses that tend to kind of live in our nose and our body, just like bacteria. And bacteria and viruses kind of coexist kind of in harmony, and so there are kind of good viruses, and now because we are able to do genomic sequencing, where we look at the DNA material, like we're finding more and more each day about different types of viruses. So yeah, there are definitely kind of healthy viruses that we can have as well.
So I reckon but Barney's asking, when are we going to get started on the origami? What a good question. Shall we get started? I can show you how to start this. So with origami, people have made discoveries and then passed them on. It's transmission, really. In this case, I don't know who has invented this. I have asked around and no one really seems to quite know. Otherwise, I'd ask permission. And so this has been very successfully transmitted across lots of people. There is no glue. It is made of 16 spikes, so you're going to be very busy, and I think you'll probably continue making this after the session as well, but it's a really good project to do. So what you'll need to do to make one of these is grab yourself 2 pieces of A4 paper, and we'll make 8 squares from one piece, 8 squares from the other. So if I just show you maybe with just 1 sheet of paper for now, and you'll get the idea. So yeah. With origami, I recommend you just take your time. It is just about folding a piece of paper. Just be really accurate, which is like being a scientist. Good, strong folds, because the folds will give it strength. And remember to enjoy yourself, because that's what it's meant to be about. Yeah, someone was asking if COVID-19 is called that because of the year 2019. That's correct, from what I understand. So we're going to take a piece of paper, fold it in half. We'll probably won't be able to multitask on questions just for a moment while we're doing this, but we'll soon then get into the hang of making these little spikes. So fold a piece of paper nice accurately in half. If you do a good strong fold, then you should be able to do a little nick there and then tear it. So I've actually, since March, so a year now, I've been recording a film every week of a different piece of origami and doing live folds every Wednesday at 2. So if you look up my name, Dr. Lizzie Burns, you'll find that. I've been doing it because actually I work 1 day a week in a hospital, and a patient asked me to learn origami because she found that it helped her relax during times of anxiety and boredom, which we're all going through really. So we're going to take a corner and make a square. This is what so much of origami is based on, squares, but not necessarily. You can fold with other shapes. So I'm just lining it up right the way through the tip there. You'll soon get the hang of making squares. We need to get rid of this rectangle on the edge. And I just find there's something really lovely about doing something physical, because we're all missing that physical connection, aren't we? Being able to touch each other. But actually with paper, I love the feeling we're doing something quite physical, and I think that makes us feel a little bit more connected. It's also about often making presents, so maybe you could even post a virus to somebody. Obviously, I mean an origami one, not a real one. And we'll get rid of this little nick. It's also seen as a star, actually, this, but I did think it looks a little bit like a virus. So I've made a square. Are you all good there? Lovely. Excellent. And we will fold it in half. We're going to make this square into 4 squares. And in total, you're going to need 16. So 4 squares split into 4. Wow. It's amazing how much even 16 feels after a while. And of course, viruses are made by your own cells. Your cells will be busy making these things. Hopefully not, but fold it in half and a good strong fold. You can do a little neck. But we'll get on to questions in a moment once you probably can't take in too much yourselves. So, and then fold that in half. There we go. There we go. So the important thing is these 16 squares are all the same size, basically, for them to fit together. So, done 2 there. Let me do my other one. There we go. Little tiny nick. And then how to fold these little things. Hopefully you'll find it quite relaxing. I really enjoy modular origami. It's a bit like more complicated, more exciting than Lego, but you can build amazing, incredible structures. It's all about little tucks. It's all about how things link together. It's very much science and art, origami. It's engineering. And actually, viruses are very much like little miniature pieces of engineering. So I will wait to make sure you've all got your squares and you're all ready. This is the wonderful thing with the gallery view. I can see you making. Thank you for letting us see that, because it's really helpful. Great. I can start to Kamala. I can see you there. You're in Malaysia. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So we've made a little square. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half. So take your little square and just fold it in half. Again, be really nice and exact. I've been learning how to fold into a camera. It's quite amazing what your brain can do. We've all had to learn new things and adapt, haven't we? And I don't know why viruses always really inspire my creativity. They kind of just change things. There's something about them that's quite dynamic. I've actually done quite a lot of artwork about viruses. They're very beautiful, but you know what, that fascination and beauty, thankfully scientists share, and actually it's that understanding that then brings us to a good place. Great. So next we're going to take a corner and we're going to...
Lizzie, sorry, someone asked if you could repeat the bit with the triangle.
With the... Triangle,
could you repeat the bit with the triangle, maybe with the square?
There's no triangle. So all it was, maybe if I quickly show you how to make a square again. So this is half an A4 paper. And let me show you. So I have taken a corner and I'm lining it up, going neatly through that point. Maybe this is the step. Do you think this is the step? That's it. So I've lined it up there. Underneath here is a square. So you need to get rid of the rectangle at the side. Turn it over. Bring it back and line it up. Again, just take your time. Hopefully you will with time find this quite relaxing, because you just have to completely focus. And oh, too fast, sorry. And then a little tiny neck. If you put your hand down on the surface, then you should be able to tear off that rectangle. Hopefully you've ended up with a square. Did that make sense, or does it need to be? I can repeat again if you need. And then obviously a square, to divide it up, if you just fold it in half, again, be accurate. Oh, sorry, Erin, I'm being way too fast, aren't I? I've only got 16 little spikes to it. We're not going to do it in time, but it's all right. You'll be able to continue afterwards. I've also recorded films of all of this, so you'll be able to go onto that page. Most of all, enjoy that you're taking on the challenge. Ah, that's right. That's right. And then I'm tearing that in half. Folding that in half. So basically making a little set of identical sized squares. And this is just one piece of A4. You'd want to do the same with another in order to make 16. I don't think we're going to be doing all 16 right now, but you'll get going. So are you ready? Hopefully with one square, and I can show you how to make a little spike. Yeah. So we're going to take the square, and if you fold it in half to make a rectangle, like so. I don't know if you've ever made the sort of fortune teller or the, you know, where you kind of move it. You've got little options, you go like that. It's a little bit like that at the start. So I folded it in half. I'm next going to take, it doesn't matter which corner, but take a corner and line it up along that line. Like so. And you do that with each corner. So again, a corner, bring it up. If you just line it along that line, it should be fine. Wondering what I'm doing now, fronting it. All right, looking down. The good thing with paper is you can reposition until you're happy it's in the right position. So yeah, if you are finding that you don't get it all in this time, that's absolutely fine. I have recorded hopefully a clearer video already, and you'll be able to use that. So do not worry, you'll do it. Corner. I think most of all, origami, the best attitude is taking it as a little bit of a fun challenge. And while you're doing that, you'll forget everything else. And then bringing that again to the middle. So hopefully you end up with something like that. Great. Great. Happy? Yeah? We'll do it quite a few times, but we'll also try and ask questions as well. It's so hard, isn't it? We're so busy. If we take a diagonal side and we're going to fold it up to that midway line, like so. So you've got your square. I've kind of put it in a diamond position at the moment. I'm going to take this side and I'm going to bring it up to that middle line, like so. Great. And I'm going to do the same with the other one. So it ends up looking like a kite. Like so. Oh, so Tony and Francesca, brilliant to see you making this too. Yay. Yeah. Lots of us haven't done this since we were children. Yes. So you've got something now which looks like a kite or maybe an ice cream cone. We'll take the ice cream bits, the bits sticking up, and just fold it back. And what I'll do is after this, I will keep doing it and you'll be able to watch, but we'll also start asking some more questions again as well. So it looks like this, hopefully. And if you turn it round, you'll see this little triangle sticking down. I want you to take this and fold it back like that. So it looked like this and I just folded it back. And what you've made a spike. And can you see there's some little pockets there? And later on that will help you build your virus like corona-like spikes. So I will continue and recommend that you continue with your little squares. And if I continue folding these, and we'll try and ask questions as well. So Tony, what's the favourite part of your job that you do?
So I spend part of my time working in a hospital like Francesca, treating patients with infections. So over the past year, a lot of that's been COVID. But most of my time I work at Glasgow University doing research, and my research is mostly in finding out, who are at higher risk of getting virus infections, and basically find out who's at higher risk, and therefore kind of trying to determine who should get vaccines, for example, or better tests for diagnosing COVID and other viruses. So I actually really enjoy the research part of my job.
Oh, thank you. I wonder, we've been getting great questions earlier on. Maybe I could scroll back to that. Let me see. People have been great. They've even been answering questions as well. What colour is COVID-19? I would suggest when things are very tiny, they don't have colour. So those pictures I showed you before, black and white pictures, they're basically so small, you're using electrons to see them. And there's no colour. So scientists add gorgeous bright colours. It's just so that it looks pretty. They're more likely to get a publication and people look at their work. So you can use whatever colours you like. So this stuff is so small, it's beyond colour. But great question. Another question. Why would viruses kill their host? Seems a pretty stupid thing to do, doesn't it? I don't know.
I mean, the most efficient viruses don't. That's why COVID is such a clever virus, because actually there are some viruses like SARS. I talked about SARS, which is a kind of close relative. That was a much more lethal virus. It killed about 10% of people that it infected. So that's not a very efficient virus. Whereas a clever virus like COVID can infect people, and they can spread the virus when you don't have any symptoms. So, almost a third of people can have asymptomatic infection. So if you don't know you have the virus, you can go about doing your normal stuff, chatting to friends and colleagues and play with, your friends, and you can still transmit it. And actually, as Francesca said earlier, most people do get better from COVID and develop immunity. And in the meantime, the virus is very clever at mutating itself as well. All viruses mutate either at different types of speed. So you're quite right. Clever viruses don't kill their host.
Another question, this is from Honey. How have more women than men reacted to the AstraZeneca vaccine? I'm guessing that you're thinking about side effects. Yeah, wonder if, or Francesca, if you've got any answers, or Tony, it's up to you. Who wants to take that? If you know about whether there's a difference in side effects from vaccines between men and women.
I have to admit, I haven't. I don't think there was anything specific. Men and women were differently affected. Certainly, it seems that younger patients are more likely to feel unwell for the first 24 hours or so after the vaccine. I mean, the majority of patients get a sore arm, a bit like a flu vaccine, and some people can feel a bit groggy. So you know, some people have had a sort of a low grade temperature and just felt under the weather, but you know, most people say after 24 hours, as soon as it's come, it's gone. And actually, you know, it's kind of a marker of your body responding to the vaccine, which may be, I guess, why some older patients don't often have that side effect. But certainly I would say that you know, the vaccines are very safe, and actually the side effect profile is pretty good, really.
Because I've heard people voice concern of, you know, being worried about having a vaccine. I don't know, is there anything that you can say about that?
Francesca, have you had the vaccine?
Yeah, so I had my first dose in January, and I'm expecting my second dose next week. And yeah, apart from a sore arm, though, I didn't really have any side effects. And, you know, I would say it's interesting, actually, a lot of staff, despite all our PPE, still caught coronavirus during the second wave, because we were very heavily exposed on the ward. And since we've all been vaccinated, although our numbers have been lower, nobody has gone off with it. So, you know, that's a clear signal to me that the vaccine is working. And you know, and everyone I know has taken up the vaccine. You know, I don't know a single person who has said they don't want it. So, you know, there's been 20+ million people vaccinated in this country, and you know, we haven't had a signal that there's a problem with it. So, you know, I would say it's a very safe vaccine, and if you're offered it, I would really encourage patients and people to take up that offer.
Yes, actually, I'm an NHS staff because I work 1 day a week in a hospital, and although I'm at the moment being asked to work remote, which is the sort of work that I'm doing, absolutely, as soon as you're given that invitation, say yes. So I've had my first vaccine, and the next one I'll have on the 22nd, which is amazing. I didn't have any side effects from it, actually, but I know quite a few people have, so it really varies, actually. You just never know. Do either of you know why some people can feel a little bit, you know, a little bit unwell afterwards? Obviously, they get better quickly, so it's only maybe a few days. But do you know why people can sometimes feel a bit unwell after it, you know, a vaccine? Because that does happen for people as well.
I think that's mostly to do with the immune response you have to the vaccine. And actually, there's been research coming out, in particular, if you've had COVID, so your body has had exposure to the virus and you get the vaccine, you can develop a stronger immune response because your body already has those soldiers, those antibodies, you know, that recognize the bit of the virus in the vaccine. So I was actually a participant in a vaccine trial, the Novavax vaccine, which is not widely used in the UK. And when I got the first dose, it wasn't very sore, but when I got the second dose, I got a really sore arm, much sorer than the first time. But I think that's because my body has generated some immune response to it. And I think that's been reported by quite a number of people, that when they get the second dose, they get almost like a flu-like illness. I mean, I don't know how many people have had the flu vaccine, but some, you know, I always get a sore arm for a few days, but I did feel kind of headachy and just a bit tired for a few days after my second dose. And that's totally normal and absolutely nothing to worry about. And the main thing to remember is that the vaccine doesn't contain live virus. The COVID vaccine, it's just a small part of a protein, or the instruction to make the spike protein that your body then reacts to. So you're not getting any live virus at all.
There's some really good questions here, actually. I wonder whether we could have a go at answering them. One was about, why do we need 2 doses for vaccines?
So again, as Tony's mentioned, having a second dose can just boost that immune response even more. So certainly when we did the trials, the patients that had a booster dose generated much higher antibody levels. It's interesting, I think France have now said that patients who've had coronavirus, if they only need 1 vaccine rather than 2, because you're kind of boosting their original immune response to the virus. But yeah, essentially it's to make more antibodies against the virus.
Excellent. Another really good question. Why do we know why people with fibromyalgia are reacting quite badly? Is it because of their slightly compromised immune systems? Is somebody asking about that? Whether you know anything about that?
I have to admit, I wasn't aware of patients with fibromyalgia experiencing more side effects, so I'm afraid I can't answer that question. I guess again, I would say that it is safe, and lots of patients with those conditions have now been vaccinated. So please come forward for your vaccine if you're offered it.
And yeah, there's so many people who've been vaccinated, so there will be so much knowledge as to whether it does affect people or not, but it will be really well studied, and yeah, we're all hearing it's very safe. Tony, have you heard at all about that?
No, not at all. We're still finding out a lot, but that's not something I've heard.
Okay, that's great. Another question was about whether coronavirus SARS is different to influenza.
Yeah, they're different families of viruses. I mean, the basic, they're both kind of RNA viruses. Sorry, my dog has just walked in. I think he wants to join on the origami, but I don't think he has the dexterity to make it. But yeah, they're different. They're completely different viruses. And influenza has been around for a really long time. There's been multiple pandemics of flu. And most humans have been exposed to flu, and we have an annual flu vaccine, and so coronavirus is different. But I can almost see that, I think someone else asked a question about how long the coronavirus immunity from coronavirus vaccine lasts for. We don't really know that because it's not been around for a really long time, and obviously there are lots of different variants. You may have heard that in the news that are circulating, and we think that perhaps we might need boosters, or the fact that it evolves means we might need additional vaccines, and perhaps similar to the flu vaccine, we might need annual vaccination for both of those.
Thank you. Well, time's pressing on. I reckon I should show you how to put some of these spikes together. Would that be good? To make the complete star crown, you'd need to make 16. So again, you could do your second piece of paper, fold it in half, make a square of each, cut those, effectively fold those squares into 4. You've got another 8. But just to show you how to put it together, so if you get your spikes and if you get them the same way round, now what you'll notice is they have 2 little prongy bits and there's 2 little tucks. So it's very handy. You should be able to tuck one of the prongy things into one side of a pocket. It should slide in, and you need to do it on the other side at the same time. Never do these things live. So it's trying to get them into those pockets. Once you get it in, you'll be able to push it in, and you can see it's a slight angle, can't you? And that slight angle will take you round eventually with 16 of them. And again, each of these little slots will go into the next one. So just make sure you've got it the same way round each time. One slot into the other. And as I said, take a look on the viruses and vaccines page. There is a film. So obviously you're not going to have done 16 in this time. I'm certainly not. But hopefully you'll have started. And it's all about sort of... yeah, you've been learning something new. Hopefully you'll find this rather enjoyable. You could maybe hang up your little sons, or, oh wow, Thatcher, you're getting on well. Very good. Yes, excellent. So I will attempt to look at more questions, but we've only got, I guess, 2 minutes left. Actually, I wonder as well if you could put, I think this will be followed up by a little bit of a feedback form, because we'd love to hear what you think about this, what you've learned, what's been good, what you could improve. But actually, while you're here right now, could you put anything in the chat box as to what you thought about this? Anything you want to say, completely open. So if you pop that down, I'll see if there are any other questions. I know there was loads, and it's just been amazing to have so many of you here. Another question: what would happen if you had more than one type of vaccine, a Pfizer, AstraZeneca, for example?
Yeah, I just answered that question.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was trying to address some of that. Was from my brother, so. So, I mean, there are now currently studies that are looking at mixing them, because if you can imagine, sometimes the supplies might be, iffy. So there are currently studies looking at mixing them. So getting 1 dose of Oxford followed by 1 dose of Pfizer and vice versa. it may be the immunology. I'm not an immunology expert, but some immunologists believe that you might even get a stronger response by mixing the different types of vaccine. So it kind of restricts you less in terms of, you know, if one is low supply for whatever reason, and that is an amazing coronavirus, then, you know, mixing and matching would make sense. So that is hopefully we'll see the results of those studies soon.
Brilliant. Well, I saw just one last question, and I wonder whether I could really quickly answer it. Can you please give a brief reminder of how vaccines work again? Again, can I use some origami to explain? So your body makes little things called antibodies, and they will look around and they will spot something like a virus, and they will stick. And when a virus sticks there, your body starts making more of that antibody. And the antibody will stop the virus working properly. And it will also mean that your body starts to attack and get rid of it. So that's how you get better. So if you can get yourself prepared before any exposure to the virus, it means you can get prepared by just making a tiny bit of the spike. So that way it will stick onto your antibody. Your body makes loads of these and it's safe. It's not the whole virus. So it means if ever you caught the real thing, it's your own body that will fight it off. So vaccines, in a way, they're not really medicine. They're just getting your body to do. It's an amazing thing. I hope that made some kind of sense to you. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we're pretty much at the end. I don't know, Thatcher, whether you would like to finish it off. And
yeah,
thank you so much.
I can see some of your origami.
Yeah, that's great.
They look great.
Yeah, hold up your artwork, your spikes so far, what you were colouring in before. It would be amazing to see what you've been doing.
This is the first time I've done
Yay!
this.
Wow. You've
Very
been
fun.
creative.
Really great.
So funny that you chose
wow.
virus to make. Wow.
Yeah, this looked like it was the hardest one, but you've all done really well.
Great Christmas decoration.
Yeah, hang them up in your window. Wow, and the colouring in too. Amazing.
I love the multicolored ones.
I hope it's been helpful for you all. And also I've been kind of asking questions. Wow, we're asking questions to pathologists more, so you can colour in while we're just putting things on in the background. And there's videos for folding up all these pieces of origami, so there's plenty more for you to do, and we'd love to see what you've made. It would be really wonderful.
Yeah, so please do put your images up on social media and use the hashtag viruses and vaccines. We'd love to see those, and we'll be sending around a feedback form after this, so let us know what you thought of the event. And as Lizzie mentioned, there are loads more activities for you to take part in on the viruses and vaccines page. Is there anything else that we need to mention at this point? If not, I suppose that's it from us. Thank you again for joining us, and have a fantastic rest of your weekend, everyone.
Maybe finishing the viruses, no doubt.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much
for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.